to the 8th episode of Bach, Bagels, and Bob. I hope some of you got your coffee, your bagels, your breakfast, whatever. Feel free to enjoy it while we talk. We talk about music. Today is a very, very special episode, I think, because we're going to meet composers. Most of the time so far, I've had pianists, and singers, violinists, and all. So it is really, really great to welcome composers and to discuss new music. Whether you like new music or modern music or not, it's I think it needs to be supported. We need to promote it. One of the things I'm proud about with my work with the Baroque Orchestra of New Jersey is that we have been devoted to premiering works by living composers, especially.
I think so. Let me see on my telephone. Let me see. He sent it to me. Well, I sent you what?
New York composers like Amy, Florida composers like Dave. But local people that I know, people that I can work with, who can be here for the premieres of their works, and in some instances be able to play their works several times. Lee Doswell has introduced me to the music of Marco Frisina, who was a living composer in Rome, and it's been a privilege to premiere his work with him being here and to conduct an entire concert of his music at the National Opera Center in New York City. So playing new music has always been a part of everything I've tried to do, and I am a composer myself. So kind of the Baroque Orchestra is this mix where we do mostly music 17th and 18th century and 21st century. So, I mean, we do a lot of romantic and 20th century music as well, but it's interesting that we perform so much unknown or newly discovered music of the 17th century and newly written music in the 21st century. Before we start, I like to acknowledge some of the local people who have helped, who have been supportive. One of the things we've had a chance to do is some virtual concerts, and we are actually going to be filming a virtual concert soon, next week, in Madison. And while things are rough for everybody, we're in this together. And so a number of businesses in Madison have been supportive, not necessarily financially. We still rely primarily on donations, but there's been some give and take and the sense of providing us with a space to work, providing us with promotional material, and so on. So I'd like to acknowledge some of our colleagues and sponsors. So, the Madison Community Arts Center is a new arts center located in Madison, where we did our virtual summer music festival. Big thanks to Eric Hathan and everybody in Madison for allowing us the use of this beautiful, beautiful space to create our concerts, which we can put together and present during the course of the year. And like I said, we have a couple planned for December, for January, for the winter months that you can still spend with us with the orchestra. Madison Arts and Cultural Alliance, MACA, has been a big supporter, has been Madison Downtown Development Commission, both of which have provided us with, like I said, a venue, being the Community Arts Center, and some support in terms of promotion. Some of the restaurants that I attend, as a composer, I like to compose in a public space. And a couple of the public spaces that I'll go to, or I used to go to, obviously I can't right now, but the Madison Bagel Cafe is someplace I would go, have coffee, get a bagel, and do my composing. Salvatore Minardi is my hairdresser, hairstylist, what you want to call it. And he's a great, great friend and a great supporter and a guitar player himself, and a supporter of classical music and new music. Shanghai Jazz is one of the leading jazz clubs in the world, and many of our artists have appeared there in various ways, usually related to jazz. Romanelli's, many of you know, we have in the past had our parties at Romanelli's. They've catered it for us, and we go there and have a terrific time, enjoy wonderful food, and a great camaraderie after a concert. Evan Ardell is a cellist with the orchestra, and Evan has been a big supporter and works independently with Evan Ardell Financial Services. Andrew Massini is on the board of directors, and he has started his own company. He is our treasurer, and he works with a company called Sound Ledgers, which does bookkeeping and accounting work. But as I'm sure you've seen with PBS and everybody else, we rely mostly on is help from listeners like you. It's your contributions, and I am so, so grateful to several of you who have already made contributions this year to help us keep the orchestra going. There are so many costs that people don't even know. People think, well, you're not doing any concerts, so it's not costing anything. But to exist as a nonprofit, you have to have licenses, you have to register, you have to have insurance, even if you don't have any events that are being insured. So the costs are obviously not as great as when we are able to give full performances, but there's still many, many costs. And we pay our musicians when we do some of the virtual things as much as we possibly can. So I am extremely grateful for all the help that you have provided. So now we start talking about contemporary composition. I have 4 guests. I guess the friend that I've had for the longest time is Dave Williams, whom I've known for 30 years, 40 years. You have to unmute yourself.
Bob, how about 47 years?
I don't want to think in those kind of terms. Dave is a guitar player. We met teaching together 40 some years ago. And then we lost touch with each other for about 20 years, 25 years.
Perhaps, yeah.
And met again at an orchestra-sponsored concert up in Knowlton on the Delaware River. And we become friends. We've shared our music together. So big welcome to my friend Dave Williams.
Thank you.
Amy Reich is a colleague at Montclair State University, is where we met. I've been the honored to premiere 2 of her works, a suite for small orchestra and Winter Dances, which we'll hear a little bit of shortly. Amy teaches music theory and is a wonderful, wonderful composer. Amy, one of the questions, I'm going to ask you a question before we even start. You belong to a group called Composers in Red Sneakers.
I used to. I helped start it.
What was the basis for? I mean, that's such a cool.
Well, I don't know how many years ago this was now. Living in Boston, there were a group of us, and we were friends, and we were all composers, and no one would play our music. So we said we better start our own group. So after a lot of wine and beer, we were sitting around one night, and we said, why don't we give it a funny name? Like, we wanted to be we thought we could make contemporary classical music cool. Like there was a whole loft art scene in Boston at the time and stuff. And we thought, well, why don't we try to be like them? So we did a couple of concerts. They were very successful. We got a lot of people, and we had a little gimmick because, in Boston, students always get charged less money when they go to a concert. So I think at the time we said general admission $2, students $3. And if you're wearing red sneakers, you get in for free. So it just kind of made it fun. And we had kids coming up and saying, why do I have to pay more? We didn't make them pay more.
That's great. That's really great.
I'm not in it anymore, but it still continues, I hear, to this day.
Good.
So, yeah.
Stanley Grill, I met a few years ago. And I've enjoyed talking music with him, listening to his compositions. We met a couple of times for coffee at Montclair and once at Horn Park, and just talking music, talking composing. It's so much fun. So, Stanley,
that is a lot of fun.
Yeah, a lot of fun. And Elijah Souels is the newest composer I've met, and he's our young artist composer. I met him through Jihoon Kriska and Keys to Success, and we actually co-composed a piece of music, which I'll talk about in a little while, and we'll listen to. So Elijah, it's great to have you with us. Thank you. So let's start with, I didn't know who to start with. So I thought about rolling the dice. I thought about flipping coins. But Amy's music was part of a very special concert in 2017 when we did this winter dances. If you remember, if anybody of you were there, it was the day the lights went out. And like 3 minutes before the concert started, all the power went out in the theater. It didn't go out in the lobby or the hallway, in the theater itself. And so if the video looks a little unusual, it's because we played two pieces. We did Amy's Winter Dances, and we did a piece called the Yellow River Concerto by stand lights. They were the only lights in the entire theater were the stand lights. And the audience was in the dark. I mean, we could have canceled the concert, except we had to wait for people to come with flashlights so that the audience would be able to see to get out. And nobody came until after we played the off. So I think I'm going to start with Amy's first movement of Winter Dances. So that's some music by Amy Reich. Wonderful piece. All four movements are absolutely wonderful. So Amy, why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
I sit in my room all day at my computer these days. I'm a pianist, composer, musician. I am also a jazz musician. I teach at Montclair State. Like a lot of musicians, I have a couple of different jobs. And this piece I wrote, I wanted to be a little conservative in the musical language that I used, because for the players in the group, and so that that it would be like user friendly. Like I didn't want to do something that would be too jarring for people to play who aren't used to playing a lot of modern contemporary music, if that's okay for me to say that.
Certainly okay.
Yeah.
Certainly your suite
And
was more in a modernist vein.
yeah, and I just like tunes. I like melodies, so that's
Well,
really all I have to
all,
say.
all the music we played of yours has a great melody.
Oh, well, thanks.
There's
I
always
like melodies.
terrific. Just to show the other side of what you do, I'd like to play a little bit of your suite.
Okay.
Just a very, very short amount of it, to show your incredible versatility. So another side of Amy Reich, I think, I love this piece. I listened to it the other day and I
Thanks.
forgot. I said, wow, this is really a pretty cool piece. So congratulations.
Thank you. What can I say?
It's just great. I enjoyed every minute of it and talking with you. If you have any
And
questions, Amy, let's go through everybody first and then save your questions for the end.
Okay.
Dave, I'm going to go to you second. Let's listen to a little bit of Dave. Dave composed a piece. Well, no, let's let Dave talk first. I conducted a piece of his called Octahedron for 8 cellos, which I looked at it when he sent me the score. The first thing I thought was, oh, this piece is not going to be that hard to conduct and make happen. And then we had the first rehearsal and I said, wow, is this piece hard to conduct and make happen? But it's a really great and very moving piece. So Dave, tell us a little bit about yourself as a composer and
Sure.
what you do.
I'm one of those fellows who went to school for music, and I got a degree in guitar playing, jazz guitar from William Patterson. And I was making so little money doing that, I said, well, let me try and get a degree in theory. So I went for theory and composition at Montclair and made no money at that, and moved ahead and went into the IT field. So I had a 33-year career in IT, but all the time kept composing. And this piece was written, I'm going to say somewhere maybe 1998 or so. It was influenced by Buckminster Fuller. And I wanted to try and express orally what was going on in my mind when it comes to, for example, Buckminster Fuller's genius. So what's happening here is I think I put together something that paints a picture, I hope. And like you said, it was more complex than it appeared on paper.
Beautiful, Dave.
Well, thank you, Robert. Nice work. Nice work to the octet too.
Yeah, they really came through. It was a marvelous experience.
Thank you.
Elijah, let's go to you next. I met Elijah through Jihoon Kriska. Jihoon, yeah, I see. Thank you for joining us this morning. Jihoon is the founder, president, director of Keys to Success, which is a vital organization bringing music to youngsters in Newark. And I am so proud, and my orchestra is so proud to have be able to collaborate with these kids. And first time we brought them they attended a concert and they performed on stage at Dolan Hall in June of 2019. So it was just a year ago, a little over a year ago. And then this year we were going to do something very unique. Instead of just allowing these youngsters to be on stage, we were going to have them perform with the orchestra. So imagine kids in 1st to 6th grade learning the piano, playing with the orchestra. Well, COVID happened, and so the concert didn't occur. But we managed to put something together virtually, and that's when I met Elijah. We co-composed a set of variations on the old Shaker tune, Simple Gifts, and without meeting each other, Elijah composed the piano music, and I composed the orchestra music. And so it came out amazingly well. I think it was, obviously we both knew what the structure was going to be, and it's all variations on a familiar tune. But Elijah added some incredibly piquant, is that the correct word? I think little spicy harmonies that when I did it, I tried to sound a little more folky, a little more classically oriented and standard oriented in what the orchestra plays, but then Elijah added these harmonies that I'm like, wow, that is really exciting, really different. So we put it together virtually, Jihoon and Elijah working with the youngsters, and I getting some of the Baroque orchestra people to participate and add their segments to it. So I know some of you have seen this before, but I'd like to play the variations on Simple Gifts, co-composed by Elijah and myself. And all those exciting harmonies that you hear in it, I'd love to take credit for it, but those are Elijah's really, really poignant harmonies. Elijah. It was a great honor to work with you, to know you as a young composer. Tell us a little bit about yourself and who you are.
Well, I'll just start by going all the way back. I started playing the piano in church. As we all know, when it comes down to church, we're not really taught theory. We're not even told about theory. We're just told, hey, the spirit and all this other stuff is going to guide you. However, just to fast forward, I'm going to fast forward. So I went to college. I had no idea about music theory until I went to college. I studied for about 2-3 years, premiered on my professor's show and everything like that. However, when it comes down to being a composer, I've always felt that music should be, or at least come from a place of realness. You know, with me, I feel like certain things, certain songs, certain lyrics, certain notes, certain chords, they correlate. They go hand in hand. Like if you're happy, you're going to play something that sounds happy. If you're sad, you're going to at least try to emphasize the sadness through your, musical language. However, so when it comes down to composing, I know it sounds like I'm fast forwarding, but I have a extensive vocabulary and I actually can talk for a very long time. So just to squeeze it all in, because we have many great composers here. It's just the fact of when it comes down to composing, I just like to just keep it free, keep it real as much as possible, and just do what I feel is best.
Well, thank you, Elijah. You have a great harmonic sense.
Thank you.
I remember when Ji-hoon sent me what you had written, I'm thinking, where did he come up with this bass line? And then I'm listening to it, I'm thinking, that is really cool. So,
thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And Stanley Grill. We were very fortunate to conduct this very moving piece, Declaration of Peace, was that a year ago just, or 2 years ago?
A year ago.
Just a year ago.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody else, the whole COVID thing has made me lose track of time. Things that were 5 years ago feel like yesterday, and things that were yesterday feel like 5 years ago. I was very, very honored, and I've enjoyed listening to a lot of Stanley's music. He's been nicely recorded. He's got some wonderful CDs out. And, a wonderful, very moving composer with a lot of heart. So let's listen to the finale of his Declaration of Peace.
Thank you.
Wow. Beautiful, Stanley. Tell us, who are you? Who is Stanley Grill?
All right. So my story is not dissimilar to David's. I've been obsessed with music since I was a tiny child. Played piano incessantly in my teens. Majored in music theory at the Manhattan School of Music in more decades ago than I care to admit. And then when my son was born 40 years ago, I decided I needed to do something else to feed the kid, and had an entirely accidental career and wound up traveling around the world. I had a long career at the New York City Transit Authority, running their contracts department. And then I worked on major infrastructure projects around the world. And the whole time I was writing music on nights, weekends. And now I'm mostly retired. I do a little, my typical day is I'm on the phone doing some consulting in the mornings. Then I take a break and I spend most of the day in my attic writing music, and most of my evenings and most around the clock. And at the moment I'm doing it from Massachusetts because I've been in my wife and I have been in my son's house because he just had our first granddaughter. So I am working on a large symphony now, in the mist, changing diapers, holding my granddaughter, going out for walks, working, and doing Zoom calls. So it's all good.
Great, Stanley. Thank you so much, and thank you for joining us. Now I'd like to open it up. Does anybody have any questions they'd like to ask any of these composers? It's a rare opportunity to meet composers who are working and continuing, keeping the music going, keeping it alive, even in these difficult times. Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, I do. Can I ask a question?
Okay, Peter.
The first composer is right. I really enjoyed the second piece, and I was wondering, do you ever consider putting some of this music into movies? Because some of it just seems so evocative. So I don't know. I just felt it could be like in I don't know, some kind of movie.
No, not really, but thanks. I think that's a lot of where you would hear music like this or recognize music that sounds like this is from movies. So it's I guess connected in that way, but I never thought about doing that, but thanks for the idea.
Okay, sure.
Diane, you had a question at the very beginning. Do you remember what it was?
Well, I was just curious, in your creativity, what stimulates you? What inspires? Elijah had mentioned that he creates music based a lot on feelings. And I assume that is part of all the, everything a composer is doing. Part of it is feelings. But I was thinking about, I've worked in the publishing world, so I was thinking about conversations with authors, and they talked about how sitting down at the typewriter or your word processor or whatever medium you were using at the time, that the words just flowed, that the characters came alive, that it was almost like they weren't creating it, someone else was creating it. And I always thought that was interesting. So I was curious as to how each of these composers felt about what I just said. In other words, do they have that kind of inspiration? Is it something that just comes out of the blue? I mean, does it wake you up at night? Is there an excitement about wanting to commit those notes to paper? I've never done anything in the realm of music other than being an audience member that absolutely adores all kinds of music except hard rock. So that's why I'm interested in the inspirational aspects of it.
Okay, so who wants to go first?
I could go first.
Okay.
Oh, me? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So,
Or Elijah.
when it comes to it, that's definitely true. what happens is, and this is what I found for myself, I'm not sure about anyone else. I seen a video of Bill Evans possibly 2 years ago, and he said when it come down to learning music, it's like you do all this, you go through all these years trying to get all this information, reading all these books and playing all these songs. And at the end of it, when it come down to improvisation or composition, it's like you don't think about any of that. It's like you do all this work to simply forget it, so then you could speak on your own. It's just like learning English, learning how to write, learning how to conduct a sentence. When you're in pre-K, first grade, second grade, they're drilling you. This is how you draw A. You got to draw A 1,000,000 times. When you go to second grade, you're not drawing A any more times. You're putting A into a sentence. And then when you're in high school, you're just saying A without even noticing it. And to me, that's exactly what music is. You're doing all this. You're learning your scales. You're learning your arpeggios. You're learning your chords. You're learning your theory. And it's like, when it comes down to creating, whatever you heard or whatever you thought about or whatever inspires you, that's going to come through that musical language. And it may be on paper. If you write on paper, it may be on computer. And just to conclude, I definitely suffer at nighttime from hearing things in my head, and I just got to get it out. I am a big advocate of that. Like, it's just there, you know, and it's like, it won't unleash you. It will not unlock you until you get it out.
Terrific.
That was well put, Elijah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dave, Amy, Stanley, what do you want to add?
I feel the same way as Elijah does. You know, you learn all this theory, that's your craft, but then you have to put that all aside and the music just comes out. But I find for myself, it's always been the case, but more so in the past few years, that the sort of pressing social issues around us impact a lot of my music. So like the piece that you performed, Declaration of Peace, that's been a theme of mine for many years, writing music that encourages thoughts about world peace and people who hear it. I figured if people can declare war, I can declare peace. So, you know, I'll do it. So I've, over the past year, several years, have written pieces about the environment, about social equity, about racial equity, about migrants, about all kinds of things that are social issues. And when I think about them, there's always music associated with it, and I write it down.
Terrific. Thank you, Stanley. Amy, Dave?
I don't know if anyone else does this, but I generally, one of two things happen. Either I, believe it or not, come up with a title for a piece first. Like, for example, with Octahedron, the name came to me even before the music did. Or sometimes I actually see the piece, and the piece is, and this sounds crazy, it's written even before I sit down at the computer or I sit down with paper. And I know exactly what the voice is. I know what the timbre of the piece is going to be. I know its voice. So more often than not, something hits me with for example, a title. Robert, you heard Ovidio Marinescu did my cello sonata. And one of the pieces in there is called Night is Dark, or Tomanai Nach. And the name just struck me even before I wrote the piece. And it came out as a blues on the cello. And I don't know why, but to me, I saw the piece, I knew its title before I wrote it. So that's something that I do. I don't know if anyone else experiences that.
That's great.
That is. Thank you, Dave. I mean, for me, actually, usually the title comes to me after I've premiered the piece. So sometimes I write it and then I say, I don't know what this title is. So I'll have several titles. Amy, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, sure. Why not? So I'm kind of pragmatic. I get inspired when somebody asks me to write something and I know it's going to get played. I find that very inspiring, rather than just writing something and it's going to sit in a drawer for a while. Also, a deadline is very inspiring. But Sometimes this is going to sound very cliched. I actually wake up in the middle of the night and some ideas running through my head. And I've learned to get up and write it down, scribble it down before I go back to sleep. Because if I wait for the morning, I can't remember it. And that's sometimes how I start doing something. And I'm always grateful when that happens. I feel like it's a gift from someplace.
Thank you, Amy. For myself, when I compose, I don't know that I have, I mean, I find inspiration from being around people. So like I said, I always start a composition, sometimes with a title, and usually like Amy, I'm more inspired if I know who I'm writing it for. If I have a singer ask me for a set of songs, or I have a friend who I want to write for. But I find my inspiration in people. So when I get started, I usually go to a diner or like a bagel place or a cafe, and I'll sit there and I'll write by hand. Now, I'll come home and be on my own when I work out all the polyphony and development and such. But for my inspiration, I take it from sights and sounds and smells and everything in the world around me. Paul, you had your hand up.
Yes. Hi. Good morning, guys. My first time on this, and I also enjoyed first time last night, Robert, with the Mozart.
Well, thank you very much.
Fantastic. I'm a musician too. I'm and first and foremost a fan of music. Period. Everything. And I wanted to trying to articulate it the best I can. I was impressed by everything today. So much diversity and just really impressive. I play music, mainly guitar. I can play other instruments and piano and harmonica and drums and stuff. I'm into the newer stuff, with modern day technology as far as dance and hip hop and jazz and everything else. But most of you guys, I was wondering, and I think I probably know the answer, but you guys are, I'm very impressed by your musical maturity, or I don't know how to put it. But do most of you, I gather, obviously your theory and your composition from schooling plays a big part in it, but and I'm sure most of you play multiple instruments as well. When you're composing, do you find yourself composing more on one instrument than another, and then you obviously put it into notation and write it down, or does it happen multiple ways, or more than the other? For instance, I know David, he said I went to school for guitar, and but he obviously composed the symphony. I was hearing the cellos and the violas and stuff, and I believe I was correct in those instruments. And that's really a question for all you guys. Is it mostly you find yourself composing on one instrument in particular, and then you yourself notate it? Because that's something I don't. My theory in composition is not at that level. I never went to school for that kind of stuff. I learned it years ago, but I haven't practiced. I mostly just play like music in general, through feelings and whatever comes into my psyche or hits me. I don't know, I know it's kind of all over the place, but maybe some of those questions could be answered.
Well, that's a good question. I'm a guitarist primarily, so I do write. I compose a lot of guitar music, but I play the piano, so sometimes I'll sit at the piano, but the main reason I compose a lot of guitar music is because I have a guitarist friend who performs my music. I don't think it's necessarily because that's what I play, though I do often think that some of my harmonic language was developed from the fact of how I finger chords on the guitar, and how you voice it on the guitar is how all of a sudden I'll voice it for orchestra, and I'll find, I voiced this pattern, the intervals between each note, similar to if I were playing a Bach chord on the guitar, or I were looking for open strings. So yeah, playing the guitar does influence me. What does anybody else
I only use the guitar if I'm writing a guitar piece or sometimes a harp piece. I don't know why, something about trying to find the proximity of sonorities together. I could do that on the guitar more readily than hear it in my head.
Makes sense to me. Amy, Stanley, Elijah?
I have never composed at an instrument. I always found that when I sat at my piano, my composition would be influenced by what my fingers can do. And so my piano is downstairs. I'm writing music up in my attic, and never the twain shall meet, because I find my ideas are much more liberated when they're just coming out of my mind instead of from an instrument.
Huh.
Amy, Elijah?
I can actually second to the statement that Stanley just said when it comes down to sometime the composition can seem to feel like it's held back if you're looking in front of your instrument, you know, because sometimes it's like, if you have that ability, you're going to want to do what you know that you can do. But when it comes to composition, I tend to, like, to put it into lack of better words, I use the piano for every single composition, but sometimes I'm playing the piano, but I'm not hearing the piano. I'm hearing the instrument I'm trying to emulate. So I'm not really thinking about it as I'm playing the piano. I'm thinking about the instrument being a tool to help me get out what I'm trying to release. And half the time when I do that, I actually have a voice recorder next to me, and I tell myself, okay, this part is for this part is for that, this part is for this, and stuff like that. So that actually helps as well. And to conclude, I must say that a lot because, again, I talk a lot. But to go back to when it comes to composition and theory, a lot of my knowledge did not come from study. Like, a lot of it came from a lot of hands-on practice. I'm saying that so you don't feel discouraged. You know, when it comes down to theory and composition, what it is, when somebody teach you theory and composition, they're more so trying to teach you or hand you tools that they believe will enhance your craft. But you can go to Sam Ash and get a book and learn the same exact thing, you know, but it can happen, basically what I'm saying. So if you would like to, of course, you know, it's lots of stuff out here. It's all the same knowledge, trust me. William Patterson is teaching the same thing as New York. New York is teaching the same thing as New Jersey. Everybody's teaching the same thing. It's just everybody have a specific way of explaining, and everybody have their own little, you know, agendas and stuff like that. So I said a lot, but I hope you guys caught the point.
Thank you.
Thank you, Elijah. Amy, do you have any final thing you'd like to say?
Yeah, I'm actually going to have to go in a minute, which I'm so embarrassed about, but this has just been so wonderful, and I forgive me for having to leave a little early. I'll just say, like, I have a lot of respect for musicians who haven't gone to school. Like, look at the Beatles or Paul McCartney, who can't even read music. He, I think, has some sort of dyslexic thing. He was never able to read music. So that's, you know, that's basically it. But I just want to thank you all so much, and please forgive me for saying goodbye. And thank you, Bob, and thank you, everybody. It was wonderful.
Thank you, Amy.
Meet everybody today. Thank
and
you.
You're not leaving early. I mean, I tried.
Nice to meet you.
I tried to make this in an hour, so and we've been a little bit over.
Please forgive me. I must seem like, you know, oh wow, she's like thinks she's so important, but I actually have to go. But thank you so much, and thanks again.
Thank you, Amy, for joining us and for sharing your thoughts and your music with us. Thank you, Dave, for all your wonderful thoughts and for sharing your great music with us, Stanley, and our young composer, Elijah, young artist, Baroque Orchestra sponsor, young artist. It's been so wonderful. I think that you guys are showing that there is a tremendous need, not just a place for it. Playing new music is not just something that should be done. I think it's something that has to be done. And the support of composers and new music and putting it out there and bringing it to life is vital to not just to music, not just to art, but to the world and to.
Thank you for having us.
Thank
Thank you, Bob.
Yeah.
Have a great weekend, everybody. Enjoy. Great.
Thank you to everyone. It was a wonderful
Bye-bye.
show.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Bob.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
you. It was wonderful.
When do you do this again, Bob?
Okay, the next one is November 28th. That's Thanksgiving
Okay.
weekend, but I don't think anybody's going anywhere. So on November 28th, I'm going to do a special opera session. I've got two guest singers, Dimitri Segrino and Maria Alou, who are the only two singers, I've only three singers that I've used who have sung Baroque opera with me, Romantic opera with me, operetta with me, and modern opera with me. So they will discuss what it's like to sing Handel, to sing Mozart, to sing Verdi, to sing Johann Strauss, and to sing Verismo. So I hope you'll join me on November 28th. I don't have a date yet for our December session, but I've decided that December is going to be, everybody is a special guest, and we're all going to just share stories, share music, share the holidays, share a holiday morning. So instead of Bach Bagels and Bob, maybe it'll be Bach Eggnog and Bob. So I hope as soon as I get a date, I hope you look for it and join me. Have a great weekend. Thank you.
That'll be at
Thank
10
you,
a.m.
Bob.
on the
Bye-bye,
28th.
everybody. Bye, Bob. Thank you.
It was wonderful.